Hello, everyone. This is the CircuitPython weekly meeting for June 1st, 2026. This is the time of the week where we get together to talk about all things CircuitPython. My name is Tim, and I am sponsored by Adafruit to work on CircuitPython. CircuitPython is a version of Python that's designed to run on tiny computers that are called microcontrollers. The development for CircuitPython is primarily sponsored by Adafruit, so if you would like to help support Adafruit and CircuitPython, then consider purchasing hardware from them at adafruit.com. This meeting is hosted on the Adafruit Discord server. You can join anytime by going to adafru.it/discord. We hold a meeting in the CircuitPython dev text channel as well as the CircuitPython voice channel. This meeting typically happens on Mondays at 2 p.m. U.S. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, except when that coincides with a U.S. holiday. In the notes doc near the top, there is a link to a calendar which you can view online or add to your favorite calendar app. We also send out notifications here in the Discord to the CircuitPythonistas role anytime there's going to be a change to the meeting day or time, although we are on Mondays at the usual time for the next couple of weeks. So if you would like those updates, and again, if you're not already CircuitPythonistas role, then just ask for that in Discord. There is a shared notes document that accompanies the meeting and recording. You can contribute to that document ahead of time. The final notes doc will include timestamps to go along with the video, so you can use that document to skip around and view the parts of the video that interest you most. The meeting tends to run 30 to 60 minutes, depending on how many folks we have for our round-robin sections. After each meeting, we'll post a link to the next meeting's notes document in the CircuitPython dev channel on Discord. You can always check the pinned messages there in that CircuitPython dev channel to find the latest notes doc to add your notes to for the upcoming meeting. You can put hug reports and status updates into that document throughout the week. You don't have to wait for the meeting to start. Let's see here. This meeting is held in 5 parts. The first part will be community news. That one is a look at all things CircuitPython and Python on hardware in the community. It's a chosen set of items from the Python on Microcontrollers newsletter. Then we will get into the quantitative overview of the entire project and the state of CircuitPython, the libraries, and Blinka. We'll look at some stats from the project overall, the core and the libraries in Blinka. Then we'll get into our first round robin, the Hug Reports section. Hug Reports is an opportunity to highlight the good things folks are doing in our community and beyond. We can take a moment to recognize awesome folks that you appreciate for the week. Next up is the 4th section, Status Updates. That one is another round robin where we'll go around the room, so to speak, and we can take a couple of minutes to talk about what we've been up to for the past week and what we'll be working on until the next meeting next week. The 5th and final part is in the weeds. That one is an opportunity for more long-form discussions. Those can either be topics that came out of status updates, or they can be identified ahead of time as something that is too long or in need of a larger discussion than status updates would facilitate. And for in the weeds, you can just put those topics down. There's a section for them in the bottom of the notes doc, so just add a little bullet point there with your name and whatever you'd like to talk about. And when the time comes towards the end of the meeting, we will call on you to start the discussion. So with that, we will get into community news. I'll take the first timestamp here and this one as well. I will tell you more about the newsletter at the end of these items, but first I'll tell you a couple items I found in this week's newsletter. So first up, we have the Rovari RV Circuit Studio purports to replace Mu for CircuitPython editing. The Rovari RV Circuit Studio aims to replace Mu, the IDE for desktop users. The code editor has syntax highlighting and code folding that auto-detects CircuitPython boards. It saves CodePy to the CircuitPy drive, and boards automatically reload. There is serial REPL with color support and a source-level debugger with breakpoints and watch exceptions, which is very cool. Also included is a real-time serial plotter with a library manager for Adafruit bundles and a snippet manager with common CircuitPython patterns. The project is licensed under Apache 2, fully open source. There are links here to GitHub as well as the project posted on X. I have just realized my Discord was on the Show and Tell channel. My apologies, I'm going to switch that right now. Okay, yeah, there's no new messages, so I'm just going to continue on. Here we go. Next item up in the newsletter. Next, we have turning the replay keynote surprise into an open source embedded playground. This one comes from the Replay Conference, which is a conference put on by Temporal.io, a software company, I believe. After the final keynote at the Replay Conference by Temporal.io, the CEO handed all the attendees what looked like a badge, but it was actually a tiny hackable computer with an ESP32S3, an OLED screen, an LED matrix, buttons, joysticks, motion sensors, haptics, IR, MicroPython, Doom, games, and more, all of which was released under the MIT license. There are links here to temporal.io, the specific website for the badge, as well as the GitHub if you would like to build your own or program one if you've got one. Next up is Basic Python. Basic Python by Bbox OS. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation here. Is a basic interpreter for the Adafruit PyPortal Titano running CircuitPython with an M5 stack card KB computer. M5 stack card KB keyboard, that is. It has been updated with many new features, including file handling, arrow key history, and inline editing. So you can check that one out on GitHub, and there's a link to Twitter as well. Next up is an accessible driving game. This one is on a RGB matrix panel. This accessible driving game with haptic feedback plus sounds uses a Raspberry Pi Pico 2W. It is written in CircuitPython. There are links here to instructables and Blue Sky. This is a really cool project. Folks should definitely check it out. The way that they integrated the joystick, I thought was really cool. They used a sort of off-the-shelf joystick, but then some 3D printed parts and some laser cut wood to build a frame around it and sort of extend it to make it a much more accessible joystick device. So check that out. Really cool to see projects like that using CircuitPython as always. And that is it for the newsletter items. So now I'll tell you more generally about the newsletter. All of these items that I just mentioned came from the Python on Microcontrollers weekly newsletter, which is a CircuitPython community-run newsletter that gets emailed out every Monday. The complete archives are available on adafruitdaily.com. It highlights the latest in Python on hardware-related news from around the web, including CircuitPython, Python, and MicroPython developments. To contribute your own news or projects, you can email cpnews@adafruit.com. We always appreciate contributions to that. And as always, a hug report goes out to Anne for putting that newsletter together for all of us to read each week. All right. So next up, we will get into the state of CircuitPython, the libraries, and Blinka. As a reminder, this is a quantitative overview of the entire project. Gives us a chance to look at the health of the project separate from our status updates. We'll talk about the project overall first, and then we'll separately discuss the core, the libraries, and Blinka. First up, overall section. We'll take a timestamp here. We had 20 pull requests merged overall by 9 different authors. The names in here that were newer or less frequent or less familiar to my eye, so these folks might be, again, newer or less frequent contributors. Those names this week were Stolen, Neutrino 1, Lini, Douglas P. Kelly, and Jia Yi. So thanks to them, as well as our other contributors whose names I see in these lists a bit more frequently. We had 5 reviewers, thanks to Scott, Dan, Liz, and Melissa for reviews this week. Issues-wise, we had 7 issues closed by 4 people, with 2 new issues opened up by 2 people. And with that, I will pass it over to Scott if you are available to tell us about the core.
Yes, I am. So numbers for the core, we had 5 pull requests merged from 4 different authors. Stolen and Neutrino 1 are names I don't see often. Dan and I were reviewers. We have 19 open pull requests, so we're comfortably under our goal of 25, which is a single page. Issues-wise, we had 5 closed issues by 3 people and 1 open by 1 person, so we're down by 4 for a total of 795 open issues. We have 8 active milestones. This is how we track prioritization for Adafruit-funded folks. Dan's been changing a lot here, so let me just run over it. We have 0 open issues on 10.2x, which is our highest priority kind of milestone because those are bug fixes we'd like to get in the current stable release. We have 60 open issues for 10.3, which is the next minor release, minor stable release. And then we have 13 open issues for 11.0.0, which are like long-term things we plan on changing with the next major release. And then we have 0 issues not assigned to milestones, so we're keeping up with triage, and that's kind of like the highlights of the milestones.
All right, thank you, Scott. Next up, I will take a timestamp and tell you about the libraries. This section covers all of the CircuitPython libraries, which are hosted on GitHub under 2 main library bundles, the Adafruit library bundle and the community bundle. Right now, we have 393 libraries in the Adafruit bundle and 176 in the community bundle, giving us a total of 569 Python libraries that support CircuitPython. Over the past week, I should say, there were 3 pull requests merged by 3 authors, thanks to Jia Yi, Maker Melissa, and Mikey Sklar. 3 reviewers, thanks to Dan, Melissa, and Liz. Of the pull requests that were merged, they were all basically on the new side of things, just 1 or 2 days old, and that leaves us with 43 pull requests open. The oldest one of those is a draft that is at 1383 days, and the newest one is 2 days old. Issues-wise, we had 1 issue closed by 1 person, 1 new issue opened up by 1 person, leaving us with 783 open issues. And there are 2 of those currently that are labeled as good first issues. You can find those 2 and the rest over at circuitpython.org/contributing, which is a website where you should head if you are interested in getting involved in CircuitPython on the Python side of things. When you first load up that page, you're going to see a list of pull requests. Typically, the first thing we point people towards when they know they want to get involved, but they don't have a specific thing they want to work on, is reviewing pull requests. So on that page, you can kind of scroll through there, find something that catches your eye, that's interesting to you, or that you've got the hardware for. You can click through to GitHub, read about what the proposed change is, and then leave a comment there reviewing it. So you can look over the code for spelling, syntax, logic, everything like that. If you do have the hardware, that's even better. You can give it a try on a device, and then in your comments include information about like what version of CircuitPython you use, what device it was, whether it was working good for you, if you had any issues. Once you get comfortable with that process, if you'd like to get leveled up to join our review team on GitHub so you can get notifications and all kinds of interesting stuff like that, so you know where new PRs are at, we can work with you to do that. If you would like to start contributing some of your own code, you can also do that from the same page, circuitpython.org/contributing. If you click over to the issues link along the top in the navigation there, you will be taken to a similar page with links to GitHub, but these ones represent issues. They don't have a proposed change yet, so they're waiting for a person who would be interested in submitting a proposed change to fix whatever that issue might be. It could be an actual bug or something. It could be adding a new feature or a new example or enhancement, something like that. So similar process. You can, again, kind of look through that list of links, find something that interests you, click through to GitHub, read about what the issue is, but then this time you'd be submitting your own PR if you wanted to work on that. We do have a Learn Guide for contributing to CircuitPython using Git and GitHub. We also have folks who are around here on the Discord who are more than happy to help you get spun up. So if you would like to start getting involved in CircuitPython and you're having trouble, whether it's reviewing or contributing, actions, pre-commit, any of the parts and pieces, just come say hi on the Discord. Let us know what you're up to. We would be happy to help you out. We want everyone to be able to contribute in whatever way works for them. Next up, I'll tell you about Blinka. So Blinka is our compatibility layer for CircuitPython to run on single-board computers like the Raspberry Pi and other Linux-based systems. In the Blinka libraries over the past week, we had 12 pull requests merged by 3 authors, Leni, Dependabot, and Douglas P. Kelly. We had 2 reviewers, Maker Melissa and Melissa's PyClaw. And then we have currently 11 open pull requests. I think a bunch of these are a new batch that came in from Dependabot. Issues-wise, we had 1 issue closed by 1 person, 0 issues opened up, leaving us with 84 open issues, and there is a breakdown here of which repos they're in. I'm not sure if that's new or if I just haven't caught it before, but in any case, right now, the number of supported boards by Blinka is up to 174 different devices that Blinka brings CircuitPython compatibility to. All right. So with that, I will get us into the Hug Reports section next. Hug Reports is a chance to highlight folks in the CircuitPython community and beyond for doing awesome things. I will start, then we'll go down the list of Hug Reports as they appear in the notes doc here. If you're text only or you're missing the meeting, then I'll read the notes when we get to them in the list. Otherwise, I'll call on you and you can unmute and read here in the channel. So I will get a timestamp here. I have a Hug Report this week thanks to Paul Cutler and Michael Caddy for a fantastic episode of the CircuitPython Show podcast about assistive devices. I left a link here in the notes doc. Everyone should check that out. Really cool stuff going on there using CircuitPython. So it's always fun to hear about projects like that and people like that. So thanks to Paul and Michael for that content. I also have a group hug for everyone else in the community. Next up, I will pass it over to Dan.
Okay, thanks to Relic SE, who's been testing audio things and making audio changes. It's much appreciated. It's good to have somebody working on CircuitPython audio and understanding it well. Okay.
All right, thanks, Dan. Next up is Scott.
Thank you, Tim. I have a hug for Jonathan, who goes by Tipfiller from Arch Linux for fixing the browser extension in OBS that I used for chats in my stream. Also a hug to CamoCat for an async spy PR. I'm excited to take a look. It's gonna look this morning. And then also Q's0 for helpful videos about running LLMs on AMD hardware. I got a framework desktop here locally, and I'm playing around with running local models for my use.
Nice. Thank you, Scott. And that is it for Hug Reports this week. So next up is status updates. That is our time to tell folks what we're up to individually. And again, so I'll start, then we'll go down the list as they appear in the notes doc here. When I call on you, take a couple minutes, tell us what you've been up to for the last week or what you'll be up to until the next meeting next week. And if we end up in a discussion that's too long, we can always bump it down to in the weeds to continue it further. So for me, status updates last week, the embodiment kit guide that I was working on got published. So that's out there on the Learn system now. I fixed up the docs for I2SN on the PR that I have there in the core. And the bulk of the rest of what I worked on last week was around Ubuntu Core OS. So I've been working on getting that running on a Raspberry Pi and specifically tinkering with Blinka inside of it. It's kind of its own whole lockdown ecosystem OS that is a lot different from the Raspberry Pi OS, but it's kind of aimed at a completely different use case. So it's not the same process as getting up and running under another OS, but now that I've figured it out, it's not so bad either, just different. I learned how to build snaps, which are what they call the bundled applications in Ubuntu land. I also learned how to create custom OS images for Core OS to have stuff embedded inside of it out of the gate. And I made a sort of demo that is an environmental sensor kiosk that shows up a little dashboard on the screen automatically whenever the device boots up. And I have started writing a guide that will cover how to use that on Raspberry Pi with Blinka. The other thing that I did work on a bit over the weekend was in Circup. I added a move command to the ww shell utility that's bundled with Circup. That can be used for renaming and moving files, so we just didn't have that capability in the web workflow version before. And while I was working on that, I actually discovered that the Circup docs have been broken for a while. The ones in read the docs were not building. I also noticed the badge is not updating either because it shows pass, but that's, I think, a separate deal. But those have been broken. I worked on a couple of things to fix them, and I actually wrote in the notes here, it was not successful yet, but we did merge one more actually before the meeting, and I saw that they did build successfully, although the style looks a little weird. So they're back to functional, and they do include all the latest stuff. But I do need to go back and see if I can get the style to match the rest of our docs. But that is what I've been up to. So next, I will pass it over to Dan.
All right. So as Scott noted, I triaged a bunch of issues that were in 10.3.0. 10.3.0 originally had like over 100 issues in it, and moved some to 10xx, closed some, and now there are about 60 open issues. So that's a little more reasonable for the next release. So, and I've been working on some fixes that close a few issues. One is just a couple of doc fixes. Another is some fixes for expressive BLE, which are a little bit tentative. And also there was a strange error where for just one particular error message, it was not printing, and it looked like there was some storage failure inside, and it turned out that the way we were decoding certain words in error messages was wrong, or actually the way that the tables for were made was wrong. And I had gotten a little bit. I had some inkling of this while doing some logging, and then with that information, I told an LLM about it, guided it a little bit when it wasn't quite right about something, and it came up with a fix, which turned out to be mostly changing one of the Python scripts that we use to build error messages. So that's good. So that's also up for review. So my job now is just to continue working on 10.3.0 fixes so we can get 10.3.0 final out in the not too distant future. There are a bunch of BLE and a bunch of Wi-Fi issues, which are probably related. Some of them are related to each other, and I'll be working on those. And there are also several USB host issues, which I have less skill in. So I'll see about those, and I'll probably try using an LLM as needed. Okay, that's it.
Alrighty, thank you, Dan. Next up is Scott.
Hello. Housekeeping wise, I'm out on Friday because our kids don't have daycare for in-service. And then next Thursday I go on vacation until the 24th. Should be back in the office on the 25th, which is 2 weeks after I leave. It's a Thursday. I'm working to get the device under test on the test harness boards running. I suspect I'm holding them in reset. So I was playing around with adding an HTTP server for the status of the harness, and then that should make it easy, hopefully, for me to just say like, hey, make sure this pin is this like high or low or whatever. There is a hardware thing that might be an issue with it, where the pull-ups all are connected together over the pull-up resistors. So one thing I can do is try to just pull everything up and then see what happens. So I need to do that. In that vein, because I'm out in a couple, like at the end of next week, I think I do want to do an order for a V2 of it, just because it takes a couple weeks to get back. And if I'm out, then it's kind of nice for that. So I might do that. Some changes I want to make are, one, I want to add 2 more IO expanders, I think, and just bite the bullet and just have each individual pull resistor connected to an IO expander, and then removed the shared kind of power on switch. This prevents this problem of them all talking to each other, and it actually also means that the IO expander can pull up or down, which is cool. And then on the power side, I think I want to simplify. I couldn't decide how I wanted to power these boards, but I think I settled on just using USB power, which means I can remove the barrel jack and actually change the Ethernet jack, because I had to find a specific one that broke out the other pins that I was only thinking I might need for power. But it's like, I think last I looked, JLC only had 2 of those left, and it just makes no sense. It'd be better to pick an Ethernet jack that has thousands. So those are kind of the revisions I'm thinking for the hardware thing, and I'll probably do those, I don't know, when I'm kind of in the thick of it, or needing a break from the software stuff. But I do want to do that before I leave on Thursday next week. And then I am also quite distracted because I got a framework desktop. I'm really keen to figure out how to use a local LLM, and I have it running over Tailscale, so I'm sharing it internally, for example, with Dan. I'm currently working on trying to do DeepSeek v4 Flash locally, which is the same model that I've been using through Olama Cloud, and it's been working pretty well. I think the thing is that the cloud version is like quite quick, And I'm not entirely sure. I'm not confident that the framework desktop is going to do it as quick as the cloud version, but it's still pretty interesting. So I'm playing around with that. So if folks are doing local LLM stuff, feel free to reach out to me in the Discord and that channel. I'm very curious to hear what models people are using and what hardware they're running them on. So yep, that's it. That's it for me.
Alrighty, thank you, Scott. And that is it for status updates this week. Next up would be In the Weeds. If we had any topics, that would be a spot where we could have a more long-form discussion or some back and forth. If someone's got questions or wants to have a back and forth discussion, this is where we could do it. But we have no topics this week, so we will skip right on past to the wrap-up. So let me scroll to there. This has been the CircuitPython weekly meeting for June 1st, 2026. Thanks to everyone who participated. If you would like to help support Adafruit and CircuitPython, and those of us that work on CircuitPython, consider purchasing hardware from the Adafruit shop at adafruit.com. The video of this meeting will be released on YouTube at youtube.com/Adafruit. The podcast will be made available on major podcast services. It will also get featured in the Python for Microcontrollers newsletter. You can visit adafruitdaily.com to subscribe to that. The next meeting will be held at the usual time next week on Monday. That is the 8th of June at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. The meeting, as always, is held on the Adafruit Discord. You can join that by going to adafru.it/Discord. If you'd like to be notified about any changes in day or time to the upcoming meetings, you can ask to be added to the CircuitPythonistas role on Discord. So that's it for this week. Thanks, everyone. We hope to see you all next week.